So I'm actively switching up my approach with my private clients based on some conversations that I've been having with some other, FIRE Bitcoiner people. Um, and what I'm doing is I'm helping them sort of look past their situation with their debt, but particularly my clients that are, maybe in debt. There's one in particular that I'm thinking about. She has $200,000 worth of student loans. And typically my approach in the past has been like, all the things, right? Organize, budget, expense track, and let's get this debt, out of here. Focusing on sort of like the $200,000 piece. I'm really switching up my approach now to look at, okay, let's get you to a $100,000 net worth, or depending on the person's income, like a $50,000 net worth. I think what that does is it really changes the psychology of the process for them in a lot of really important ways. If you're just focused on getting to a net worth of zero, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad idea. But I think what's going to motivate you even more is to look past the debt. It's to look past like, yeah, this is great. But what would it feel like if you knew that you had, zero debt, at least for the time being, not including mortgage and all that stuff. But what would it look like if you had no consumer debt and you had a fully funded emergency fund of like 3 to 6 months or a year? And there are definitely some different instruments that I'm, recommending or at least talking about with some of my clients right now, like the STRC, like the stretch from Strategy that pays that 10.5% dividend. What would that look like? And so I think, and this really, it feels like it's really aligned, because I remember when I paid off my $174,000 worth of debt, I was already in this like really, really extreme posture of like being willing to do things that I never would have been able to do before. Like getting really extreme with my budgeting, constraining expenses and all of those things. And so I was really sort of in that posture. I was not fatigued by the process. Now some people are, and I think you have to be kind of careful with that. And so within probably, so I paid off that $174,000 in 2.5 years. I would say within another 6 months to a year, I had a positive net worth of like $50,000. Might have actually been a little bit more. It's been so long ago. And so what's interesting about that is that I wasn't even really thinking this way. I wasn't thinking like, I want to get my net worth to $100,000, right? But I think that if you can, if you are in a posture where you're trying to pay off debt, like that's a really, really great thing to think about. It's like, okay, well, and like I said, based on your income, if that's $50,000 or $100,000, maybe it's $200,000, and you're able to sort of, keep up the momentum and keep up the grind. I see the sun is like really jacking with the image right now, so I'll keep this short. But I think that's something that's worthy of consideration. Like, okay, yes, my debt is, my goal is to get completely out of debt, but what does life look like after that? What do I want my life to actually look like after that? So I think it's a really worthy thing. Now, the other piece of that's coming through in some of these conversations is, okay, well, what if my net worth is $100,000 or $250,000 and I want to get to that $1 million net worth? That's another sort of skill set that you have to develop. And that's why I think it's really important, even as you're going through the debt elimination process, to develop that mindset of a saver and an investor, and starting to figure out ways that, okay, how can I take these resources, how can I take these resources and grow them, and that's like a whole other thing. But it is I think the debt elimination process is is a phenomenal seed for, harnessing that, that momentum. So that's something that, like I said, it's kind of a new development in my sort of coaching process, is to not focus necessarily on the end goal of being debt free, but like focus a little bit past that to, $50,000, $100,000 net worth. So I wanted to kind of float that to you guys and sort of see what you thought about that. If this kind of content is helpful to you, insightful to you, I would love it if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody that you know that is trying to figure this out for themselves. We'll be talking a lot more about this in the future, and I'll see you in the next video.